Merci, Monsieur le Président, pour la séance photo.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the photo session. We will now resume our proceedings.
Bonjour. Oui, ça va, Monsieur le Président. Je disais merci beaucoup.
I was saying thank you very much. I think that the photo session with the President of the Pan-African Parliament is done. We are going to resume our proceedings. I was saying earlier that when we announced the photo session, we could begin again with responses and answers. I had also said that the contribution of South Africa called for aspects that involve the legal counsel of the African Union. And I think that in order to be more efficient, we are going to listen to the last contributor, the legal counsel, who will tell us about the Malabo Protocol, its ratification, as well as ratification of other instruments of the African Union. The Malabo Protocol is probably the instrument that will allow our parliament to go from one stage to another. The protocol of 2014 has provisions that are still current, that Pan-African Parliament is the legislative arm of the African Union. As you have noted, and we will never say this enough, the Pan-African Parliament currently is a consultative organ of the African Union. Our aspirations is that this parliament becomes a legislative organ with all the powers needed. To understand what is around all of that, we are going to invite our guide in terms of legal matters within the African Union. I should like to invite Dr. Guy Fleury, legal counsel of the African Union, to make his contribution. Thank you.
Honorable Monsieur le Président du Parlement,
Honorable President of the Pan-African Parliament, honorable speakers of national and regional parliaments, honorable Chair, ladies and gentlemen, it is a singular honor and pleasure to be before you this afternoon to tell you about the ratification of the treaties of the African Union. As the chair of the session told you, my name is Guy Fleury Mutwari, and I am legal counsel of the African Union. The objective of my presentation today comes from the aspiration number 3 of the 2063 agenda, an Africa with good governance, justice, human rights, and rule of law. And that is an attribution of the Pan-African Parliament. The legal council is the guardian of all legal instruments at the African Union. This is why I am delighted to have accepted this invitation from the Pan-African Parliament through its President, Honorable Chief Charumbira, and his bureau, and also for the opportunity to take the floor on a platform that only the Pan-African Parliament could offer, and that is a platform gathering speakers of national and regional parliaments who play a key role in governance on the continent, and particularly on issues such as treaties and the ratification thereof.
I will switch to English. This presentation will focus on 4 main points. Slide number 2. First, the background of the OAU-AU treaties, trends, challenges of signature and ratification of OAU-AU treaties, measures taken to accelerate ratification and implementation of treaties, and finally, proposed core actions areas. So firstly, what are we talking about? Some facts and statistics to give you an idea of the context. Since the inception of the Organization of African Unity in 1963 and the African Union in 2002, the policy organs of both structures have adopted 77 legal instruments. Of the 77 legal instruments, 17 are statutes creating organs and institutions of the Union, and they normally enter into force upon adoption by the Assembly. The remaining 60 treaties do require member states to indicate their consent to be bound by them in the form of signature and/or ratification accession. Out of the 60 treaties, only 36 have entered into force as of now, leaving a total of 24 treaties that are yet to enter into force, waiting submission of the requisite number of instruments of ratification accession by member states. The adopted legal instruments across various subject areas. That's slide number 4. I would indicate here also that the Constitutive Act of the African Union is so far the only treaty to date that has achieved a status of universal ratification, followed by the African Charter on Human Rights, nearing ratification of the 55 state parties or member states of the African Union. The oldest treaty that is yet to enter into force is the Inter-African Convention establishing an African Technical Cooperation Program adopted in 1975, meaning 47 years ago. The last treaty to enter into force is the Treaty for the Establishment of the African Medicines Agency, AMA, which has entered into force on 5th November 2021 upon the deposit of the 15th instrument of ratification by the Republic of Cameroon. The latest treaty to be adopted is the protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights and on the right of citizens to social protection and social security, which was adopted during the 30th ordinary session of the Assembly of Heads of State and Government last February 2022. So here, what are the strong current trends that we observe? That is the second point of my presentation, illustrated in the table under your eyes. From the foregoing table, the year 2018 had registered the highest number of signatures and ratification with 177 signatures and 50 ratifications. This is largely due to the agreement establishing the African Continental Free Trade Area that had received a considerable number of signatures and ratification upon its adoption in March 2018, yes. In comparison, in 2021, the status of signatures and ratification of the OAU-AU stand at 17 and 40, respectively, with regard to the signatures and ratification. This downward trend may have been caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. If I may, Honorable President, I will pass over this point very quickly and let the honorable speakers and President to come back to it, if necessary, through the discussions. Now, as a third point, a review of the challenges. At the outset, it is to be underscored that challenges of ratification and implementation of AU-OAU treaties is a long-standing issue affecting most of treaties across the board. For example, aside the statutes that do not require signature and ratification, only 2 treaties adopted since 2014 to date have entered into force. These are, as I previously said, the ACFTA agreement and the treaty establishing AMA, the African Medicine Agency. Despite the growing rate of ratification, the pace of ratification remains sluggish and below the expectation of the Union. Hence, there is a lot more that needs to be done to further deliver on the ratification of our treaties. Of the 17 treaties adopted since 2014, including the Malabo Protocol, which relates to the Pan-African Parliament, and which requires signature and ratification, a total of 323 signatures and 142 ratifications have been received. That is an average of 19 signatures and 8 ratifications per treaty. It is worth to note the most OAU treaties require a minimum of 15 instruments of ratification to enter into force. Among the few treaties that require more ratification is the protocol to the Constitutive Act relating to the Pan-African Parliament, called also the Malabo Protocol, which requires 28 ratifications. The slow pace of ratification remains a constant, despite repeated appeal to member states to commence the process of ratification of treaties within 1 year of the ratification. But in concrete terms, what are the blocking factors? Honorable speakers and President, let me identify them by listing them very quickly in broad categories. without expanding on them substantially. First of all, capacity challenges, which can be cascaded in human resources, technical capacity, also financial resources. Second, complexity of some legal instrument. Three, inconsistencies in some legal instrument or in the translation. This needs to be highlighted. Four, controversial provisions or proposals in some legal instrument that may seem to be problematic. Five, bureaucratic inefficiencies. Six, slow parliamentary processes. Seven, political will. Eight, an insufficient African, what I would put in bracket, polity, as critical mass of African citizens, and this has been highlighted through your discussions, and civil society organizations have not been involved in the elaboration of those instruments. If you allow me now, I will go for the fourth point of my presentation, which are the measures taken to accelerate signature and ratification of treaties. Regarding strategies to speed up ratification of treaties, the policy organs, here to be understood, it is the Assembly and the Executive Council, has established a ministerial committee on the challenges of ratification or accession and implementation of OAU-AU treaties, with different functions that you can see in the slides in front of you. But you will let me draw your attention to objectives C, D, and E, which read as follows. Advocate for the ratification, domestication, and implementation of OAU treaties by all member states. This is the core mandate of this ministerial committee. In C, this committee shall identify strategies to encourage member states to commence the process of ratification of existing treaties, not yet ratified or acceded to, and for future treaties within 1 year of their adoption. The committee shall also determine appropriate roles of the AU organs, in particular the Pan-African Parliament, the Commission, the specialized technical committees on justice and legal affairs, and AU ECOSOC, which may play in advocacy and sensitization campaigns of the AU treaties ratification. And finally, the committee shall work with member states to establish institutional mechanisms to speed up the ratification process and ensure incorporation of AU treaties into national legislations, as well as the implementation of the treaties. I wish also to indicate that this ministerial committee became operational with the adoption of its rules of procedure in Malabo in June 2014, and has already submitted several reports containing an important number of concrete proposals. On measures taken in order to accelerate the signature and ratification of treaties, allow me also to dwell on what the Commission, the AU Commission, has also been undertaking as activities to promote the rate and pace of ratification of AU treaties. The AU Commission, particularly through the Office of the Legal Counsel, but also some other departments, have engaged some stakeholders in workshops to popularize and brainstorm on strategies to accelerate the ratification of AU treaties. We have also organized an AU Law Week in order to sensitize member states on the ratification of some legal instrument. Finally, to conclude my presentation, the last point concerns some proposed core action areas for discussions. On the need to accelerate the rate and pace of signature and ratification, and the ultimate goal being to attain universal ratification for all AU treaties, the following core actions have been proposed as a way forward. First, the enhancement of national sectorial committee. This is an opportunity, Honorable Presidents and speakers of national parliaments, to recall that one of the recommendations validated by the ministerial committee mentioned above is the need to create national sector committees. Subject to the reality of each member state on the issue of ratification and implementation of treaties, the National Sectoral Committee is composed of representatives of Ministry of Foreign Affairs or External Relations, representative of national parliament, including active involvement of Secretary Generals, representatives also of Ministry of Justice, as well as representatives from other sectoral ministries. Each member state is encouraged to operationalize this cross-sectoral committee to address challenges of ratifying and implementing AU treaties. Those committees at the national level are expected to assist in the ratification process. In this regard, speakers of parliament, national parliament, members of PAP, as well as other members of national parliament are key stakeholders in this process. As such, they should play a more proactive role. While member states may consider the above composition taking into account their own local realities, the main point remains to be that a national sectorial committee should comprise of members that play a critical role in signature, ratification, and implementation of treaties. Second proposal, it's the institutionalization of a platform for interaction between the Pan-African Parliament on one hand and national and sub-regional parliaments on the other. May I say that this is a personal proposal, and I'm quite comfortable and confident in making it before you, especially as different honorable speakers from Sierra Leone, from Ghana, made it before me and in a more eloquent manner. Honorable speakers, it is well known that national parliaments play an important role in the ratification process of treaties, whatever the legal system we are using on our continent. It is therefore time for national and regional parliaments to be more involved and even take the lead in this process. The institutionalization of this platform could achieve, at least in my view, three objectives. First, to take into account the political and legal realities and specificities of each of our AU member states. And from there, two other objectives. First, strategies accompanied by concrete proposals for action could therefore be debated and decided upon during these platform meetings, before being subject of an annual evaluation or assessment during the meetings of this interaction platform. This is my humble proposal submitted to your appreciation. Finally, other proposed core action areas of the following are advocacy and walking visits to targeted member states to liaise with senior officials and national stakeholders. This visit will involve walking sessions with the heads of state of government, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Justice, senior officials of national parliaments, national sectorial committees, as well as UN agencies and civil society organizations. We could also solicit resources to provide technical assistance to member states facing challenges on signature and ratification of AU treaties. And also the organization and promotion of exchange of experience among the national sectorial committees and other stakeholders on the initiatives being undertaken to speed up signature and ratification of AU treaties. I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Legal Advisor, Legal Counsel. We've listened to his presentation, which is an information session. But obviously, the idea was to give us the state of ratification of the Malabo Protocol and other legal instruments of the African Union. He told us on what he was basing his discussion, aspiration number 3, and other instruments on rule of law. And he also gave us the challenges and the measures to accelerate ratification of other pending documents. I don't think I cannot turn down the interventions of speakers. I remember that he said he came here just to give us information. If you request the floor, I will give it to you. However, if we take 1 or 2 hands, we'll give you 2 minutes only to ask questions or make interventions based on this information session. And after that, we're going to take a break just to recover and have lunch that is waiting for us and has been waiting for us for a while now. I'll give you the floor. Yes, dear respected speaker from Sierra Leone.
Before assuming my present role as Speaker of Parliament, I had served ECOWAS as the Executive Secretary of that institution before. And I just want to take this opportunity to share my own experience in ECOWAS with the Legal Counsel of the AU. In addition to the national committee platform that has been established, there is some additional work you can do at the regional level, at the AU level, which is prepare every summit meeting of heads of state a list of the instruments that have to be ratified by member states and indicate the status of ratification and have that distributed to each and every head of state present. Let them see their position, more or less set them up to compete among themselves. That's what I did in ECOWAS, and we recorded 100% record in getting ECOWAS members to ratify their protocols. When heads of state see what position they've occupied, the first thing they will do is to turn to the Minister of Foreign Affairs and ask, what's happening? What's going on? This is insulting. I'm ashamed. Look at my position. You will see it worked wonders for us, and I'm sure it will work wonders for you. Just try it. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I believe that after his brilliant intervention, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to give you the floor, 2 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes maximum. And I just want to reassure the various speakers of national parliaments that we are going to a request from all the presenters that they send us their presentations so that we forward them to you. And I believe that the final communication that shall be done at the end of this gathering between 2 or 3 p.m. Maybe some of you will not be there, but rest assured that the Pan-African Parliament will take all measures necessary to give you all the information necessary regarding this last section of the today's activities. So I just want to give you the floor to make an intervention following the questions and comments and anything that you would like to add. I give you the floor. Thank you.
I'm coming in to make a few remarks regarding the interventions from the floor. I'll start with the one with respect to FEGG project number 5 on silencing the guns. I would say, in one phrase, if brothers fight to death, it is the neighbor who inherits their kingdom, and end on that one. And then I'll proceed to implementation of Agenda 2063 flagship projects. The design of Agenda 2063 is such that the documentation is crafted at continental levels in collaboration with regional economic communities. What should happen is that at national level, member states are encouraged to establish Agenda 2063 national committees that will frequently feed into the continental reporting system. And just to respond to a question from Honorable Mdenda regarding the M&E framework, it is indeed incorporated, and we have done a comprehensive assessment of the implementation of Agenda 2063 at national level when I engage with colleagues so that we send that report to yourselves so that you can also assess yourselves at national level through the relevant structures. And then finally, there is a comment from regarding inclusion. Aspiration number 6 of the Agenda 2063, it reflects that the process has to be people-driven. So we are indeed championing a process that is people-centered. And also, to allay your fears, we recently completed the 2010-2020 decade of women. So the recommendations from that will then have to cascade into other engagements when designing policies. So the point of that is that continental initiatives are now gender inclusive. There is that component to take care of the women and the girl child and youth. Thank you, Chair. I yield the floor.
Thank you very much. Immediately we'll hand over to His Excellency Ambassador Salah.
Indeed, Your Excellency, Chairperson of the session. I wish to thank each and everyone who intervened with comments and inputs. All the comments and inputs have been taken note of, and certainly they will enrich the work of the African Governance Platform, the implementing arm of the African Governance Architecture. However, I would like to seize this opportunity, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, to just reiterate or raise or address a few issues. One, certainly Africa belongs to all of us as Africans, and certainly there is a very strong role to play for our parliamentarians at all levels, national, continental, and regional, in building the Africa we want and the Africa we deserve. And that is why we're here today to share this information with you, honorable speakers and members of parliament and national assemblies, certainly because we believe in your role for the ratification and implementation of AU shared values at the national level. Without your intervention, that ratification or universal ratification will never be achieved. But it is not really about the ratification only, as it has been mentioned by many interventions, that indeed there is really need to focus more on domestication and implementation as well as reporting. Without that, the issues related to accountability of implementation will not be addressed. Promoting peace dialogue and promotion of stability and peace and security, it is indeed one of the ultimate goal of our Agenda 2063. And that is why the AGA is inspired by Agenda 2063, in particular pillar 3 and 4 of the agenda. In addition to that, the citizen engagement in the process is extremely important, and that is why the African Union, as your continental organization, is promoting a number of programs and activities that will ensure the involvement of African citizenry in the political sphere of the continent. In addition to that, a number of policies have been and strategies have been introduced that of course includes, in addition to the free movement of goods, the free movement of persons, as well as the African passport, which will ensure the African citizenry movement across the continent. Last but not least, I want to end by repeating our slogan as African Union. If you are an African, you are the African Union. And certainly when there is a political will, we will together and collectively build the Africa we want and the Africa we deserve, the Africa that is united, prosperous, and peaceful. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm the one who thanks you. Finally, we'll give our floor to the legal counsel. Thank you very much, Mr. Session Chair, and I believe that the only intervention that was really addressed to me was the one by the Speaker of the Sierra Leonean Parliament, just to respond to what he's saying, that it's going to be an activity that we're going to do ourselves, so that is facilitating the signing of treaties during, or at least that we're going to ensure that we encourage various countries to submit instruments for ratification, which we then present to the Summit of Heads of State. But also to say that to make the process a bit more competitive, I think what he said, his intervention is really important, and we're going to include that in our processes, and also to just go in the same wavelength, the institutionalization of this exchange platform, which actually has to be coordinated by the Pan-African Parliament, should ensure that we interact with national parliaments, and generally we don't have the possibility to interact with national parliaments. But then if the Pan-African Parliament institutionalizes these gatherings, we shall be able to come even next year with more comprehensive data, more detailed and concrete suggestions, so that we do assessments as well of what has been accomplished and what still needs to be done. Yes, once more, I want to reiterate my gratitude, and I present this suggestions before you. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. I also want to sincerely thank, before I conclude, I think I see a hand. It's the Speaker of the Moroccan Parliament. Yes, you have the floor. Thank you very much, session chair. Before I conclude, I just want to apologize for taking the floor at this stage of the extraordinary gathering. We've come for traveled thousands of kilometers to come and participate in this gathering with our dear colleagues, speakers of the various assemblies and parliaments and senates. We are very happy to participate for the first time in and work with other speakers and work also with Chief the President of the Pan-African Parliament and yourself, the Vice Presidents. But unfortunately, there is a profound regret that we wish to make. That's the protest of Morocco, of the Parliament of Morocco, with regards to the family photo, during which we were excluded. If that was done on purpose, I think it goes against the grain, and it goes against what the president of the Pan-African Parliament said, notably that the Pan-African Parliament is a forum to bring together all of Africa, one voice. It was just an issue of poor organization. If that is the case, then we advise you, and we do that together to improve the management practices so that no country is excluded, no country in this assembly is excluded, because we all belong here based on the last words of the legal counsel that we are one Africa, and we should really ensure that all countries are involved and feel involved for a positive contribution. Thank you very much, Session Chair. Thank you very much. My sincere gratitude, and obviously it is true that yes, I have the floor. I'm chairing the session, and when I announced the photo session, there was this unfortunate incident, and we can only ascribe it to human error. And whenever we do things, we have sometimes a human error that can make certain things go wrong. And I think it's only the president of the Pan-African Parliament to really set the record straight, and he will take the podium later. And even before I conclude now, I need the president to come in and just say something in that regard. You have the floor, Mr. President. Mr. President? Mr. President? Just a second. I just want to hand the floor to the president of the Zimbabwe Parliament.
Vice President, can I address myself to Brian? He didn't indicate the periodical, rather periodic M&E assessments. Is it going to be annually or every 5 years, so that we keep tag on how we are implementing Agenda 2063? On the national composition of the committee on implementation or ratification of the AU instruments, one area that we need to consider, or one sector that we need to consider, are our law faculties of universities. They must come in because they are the genius at law. So we need to involve them to dissect these instruments so that they can inform our regional parliaments, including our national parliaments. Finally, on the observation by Morocco, what should normally happen is, on the first morning session, when we have started the assembly meeting, that's when we should have a photo. I think in the program that had been catered for, For example, Egypt and others are not there, but they were there yesterday with a full house in the morning. That should be the time when the photo shoot should be taken in the future, so that we capture everybody. Others leave because of travel, arrangements, and if they don't travel, they might have to stay behind here for 2 days, 3 days. So it's important that we do the photo shoot on the first day, first session, and everybody is captured accordingly. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. We have taken due note of your advice. In the meantime, you have raised another question and you've addressed it to the ones who are going to take the floor. We're going to give them the floor for a minute each because we can't reopen the question part. So after that, we'll give the floor to the President of the Pan-African Parliament, and then I'll conclude the session. You have the floor, sir.
I take note of the request for clarification on the M&E on Agenda 2063. The first 10 years, which is 2013 to 2023, is almost complete. And as I alluded earlier, the assessment in terms of how well we are doing as individual countries and regions as well, it will be shared through the laid down structures so that everything is formalized. Thank you, Chair. I yield the floor.
Merci beaucoup.
And thank you very much. The floor to the Pan-African Parliament President. You have the floor, sir.
To Vice President Chair, I had no intention of taking the floor. It's only to share, not to reply, not to share with the Speaker of Morocco. First of all, on behalf of the Bureau, I want to apologize if any situation caused you some pain or discomfort. But honestly, it was not designed by anyone. The arrangement for chairs and the labels on the chairs were done by staff, even junior to the clerk, who always do it anyway. When we were seated here, none in this room, including the clerk, was part of the arrangement of the chairs. So when we went there, the chairs were labeled. Mainly, of course, ECOWAS, the Bureau of PAP. I think I saw 2 others that were vacant. I did personally ask the protocol person when I saw the Speaker of Morocco refusing to sit or be part of the picture. I actually spoke to him and said, Speaker, come join others. But I didn't understand why he was like reluctant to join others. But later I realized it was that if he had no chair, he was not going to be part of the group. Then I called the protocol man who did say, look, are all these chairs, are all the speakers seated? He said, no, the chairs are not enough for all the speakers. Some speakers will be standing, some will sit. And unfortunately, of those that had no chairs was Morocco. I think others had been occupied by other speakers. And I want to confirm that we don't need actually to ask. There are speakers who were part of that group who were standing because they did not have chairs. Although Morocco took exception, they wanted a chair properly. Maybe next time we should make sure that we count the number of speakers and have enough chairs for the speakers present. Unfortunately, the protocol did not realize that the chairs were not enough. And anyway, we learn as we go. We learn about countries as we go, about people, about better arrangement as we go. I think next time it will be better organized. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Honorable President. Let me conclude. Thank you for the honor bestowed upon me to manage the business of this meeting. How can I thank you, thank the speakers, without having the opportunity to thank those who gave us the opportunity to be here today? Who are they? These are the founding fathers and mothers of the OAU, established in 1963, as we were reminded of. They are the ones who gave us this opportunity. Thank you for Kwame Nkrumah, Modibo Keita, Sekou Touré, because their ambition was to unite Africans, to unite our countries, because without a union, we would not be as strong as we wish. And behind that, we needed to do away with vestiges of colonization and apartheid. Then I think the baton was given to a new generation. It is this new generation that established the organ in which we are working today, the unity of African countries created here in South Africa. So if we want to do something, it has to be done with Agenda 2023 of the African Union, something that is laudable. But what is implementation without the involvement of populations? And African populations are represented in what we call the Pan-African Parliament. I think this is something important to remind ourselves of, because it is the interaction of all the citizens of this continent to be involved in discussions that lead to decisions that allow Africa to tackle its challenges. So we need to do so in a framework, because we're not going to organize referenda all the time so that we compare notes. And that's why the organization has come up with an institution that represents the peoples of Africa. So our most ardent wish is that this parliament be given all the powers that it requires. And together, we're going to see what is doable and what isn't. On that note, I then call the end of this meeting for this session, so that we come back at 2. Yesterday we had to go somewhere far. Here it was Santon, but the coupons you have remain valid. All the invited guests and the speakers are duly invited, so we go back to where we were yesterday for our lunch. Once again, thank you very much, and see you soon. The meeting is therefore suspended for the time.
Nous revenons dans cette salle à, nous disons, à 14h30. Non. Non, non. 14h.
We come back at, I think we need an hour at least to eat. So if we say, if we go at 14, then we come back at 15 hours. I think the invitation was given to us, and the time was actually on the invitation. We are, what is the time now? 13:42, so we'll be there at 2. Ah, 14:30. Fine.